So I'm gonna start with a story. So little Johnny hits the game-winning home run, and he sends his team off to the national championship. And by doing that, the team is really excited. Everyone's really ecstatic, having a good time. They're jumping for joy because they were actually depicted to be the underdogs in this game, and they actually ended up winning. So before he leaves to go to Atlanta with his team, his mom tells him how much she loves him and how much she cares about him, and she wishes him good luck. So Johnny leaves and he comes together with his team and all his coaches. And they all wave farewell to all their family and all their friends, and then they board the plane. So what happens next? What do you think happens next? 80% of people who heard this story said plane crash. 10% of people who heard this story said another fatal accident, and only 5 people said what Terror said, they won the championship. What I'm here to talk to you guys about today is fear. And how do we feel about fear? We experience it, we talk about it, we hide it, but do we ever really address it? And to me, I like to see fear as stories. Stories that have plots, that have characters, that have suspense, that have a climax, that has a great range of imagination. And we happen to be the creators of these stories. So in part, we are actually the authors of our own fears. For instance, let's take the #1 fear in the world, public speaking. Before we even step on stage, these stories are building in our head. These stories of what you imagine. You imagine you get up on stage and you forget every single word of your speech. And all of a sudden your hand starts to shake. All of a sudden you start sweating. All of a sudden you try to talk and you can't talk. And next thing you know, everyone in the crowd gets up and they laugh at you. Embarrassment. Or that fear of telling your friend or your family member about chiropractic because you care about what they may think about you. You imagine you tell them about chiropractic, they don't understand. To the point where they think you're some type of weirdo. And they go home and tell all your friends that you're this crazy vitalistic freak. Judgment. See, these stories that I just told you guys all sound way too familiar to me because I happen to be the author of both of those stories. But I think one of the biggest fears in the world today is the fear of failing. And what we do today is we actually take a bargain with fear. We say, okay, fear, I won't take any risks, I won't do anything outstanding, I won't do anything outside these boundaries, and you give me my life. See, the thing is today is that it's become common that a normal life is somehow synonymous with a meaningless life. Because sometimes fear plays that game. It says, okay, you want to do that? You stay in this box forever. You never go outside this box. You never chase your dreams. You never go out. You never take any risks. To the point where you ask yourself, are you really living life? And some of us try to beat fear. Sometimes we do something really good and we beat vulnerability to the punch. But you know what that actually does? That builds this habit of we need to always be perfect, the need for perfection. And to me personally, I think the need of perfection is actually protecting yourself from the fear of failure. Because in life, say if you do fail, because life is always up and down, and if you do fail, it's a drastic leap down when you're always on the search for perfection. And I like to compare life to Newton's law. What comes up must come down, and that's not just a statement. That's how we live life every single day. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. So I think when we search for perfection, we build up this high unnecessary anxiety. And I like to see anxiety as a repeated failure in advance before you even do anything. I think there's an incredible power of not giving a shit. Because if you had a 100% shot to do something and you knew you wouldn't fail at it, would you do it? Then what's stopping you? If you wanted to do it so bad, Why are you letting your fears and your stories stop you from doing them? I think today, a lot of our decisions are based on these fears and these stories that we make in our head. How many people in here want to help people? Raise your hand. Well, if you wanted to help people, you could have been a social worker. You could have been a yoga teacher. You could have been a dancer. You could have been a soccer coach. You could have been a bum on the street every day handing out a slip of words of wisdom. Because to empower someone, it doesn't necessarily depend on your occupation. It depends on the individual as a person. And for me personally, one of my highest priorities in life is family and being able to support my family. And I'm going to have to be honest, I think that kind of shifted me to come to the healthcare profession, and that's how I kind of found chiropractic. And I'm not saying that's a good or that's a bad thing. All I'm saying is that the fears that I had, the stories that I made up in my head, narrowed down the things that I wanted to do. And it kind of made a way for the rest of my life. And I'm glad it did, because that fear in particular, because I'm in a profession now that I love dearly. I love dearly, and I wouldn't want to be in a better place than where I am now. All I'm saying is that the fear of maybe not taking care of my family or not having my priority met brought me closer and closer and closer to the healthcare profession. So there's two things that I want you to kind of get out of this. Is that one is recognizing and bringing awareness. Recognizing that the story that you're making in your head is just a story. It is just a story. And what you need to do is kind of check that story and say, hey, is this for real, or is this a story that I'm making in my head with the character of you? Because I can make a story in my head about skydiving. And they said the thing that moves life is repetition. So if you're constantly repeating that story of, oh, I'm going to die if I skydive, I'm going to die if I skydive, it actually becomes part of you. To the point where you think that reality is true, to the point where someone comes up to you, hey, you want to skydive? No, I'm going to die. Because it's a story that you create in your head, it's planted in your head. And number two is there's one thing that triumphs fear, and that's passion. The reason I'm up here today is not because I love to public speak. It's because I passionately love chiropractic, to the point where all the fears and all the stories that I have are actually on mute. I don't even listen to them because my passion for chiropractic overcomes all my fears. So I want to do an exercise with you guys before I go out. Everyone get up. I want everyone to quietly work with the person next to you. And the people that are towards this room, towards the wall, this wall, I want you to put your right hand over your heart, closer to that wall. And the people that are closer, who are closer to this wall, I want you to take your right hand and I want you to put it over their right hand, over their heart. And while you're doing this, I want you to look at each other. Life is not about the moments. It's not about the breaths you take. It's about the moments that take your breath away. We are constantly worrying about what the next person thinks about us, the fears in our life, every single failure in our life, to the point that we create these goddamn stories in our head that we can't look the person in our eye right in front of us without having insecurities, fears come up. I want you to take this time to look that person in the eye. Look that person in the eye and get deep with yourself. Get deep with yourself and tell yourself and bring awareness to all those situations that may be coming around right now. And ask yourself, is that a story or is that true? I think the first step in life is passionately loving yourself. Because we are braver than what we believe, we are stronger than what we seem, and we are smarter than what we think. Thank you.